Let's bring in Minnesota State Representative Kristin Robbins, chairwoman of the State Fraud Committee and a Republican candidate for governor in Minnesota. Great to see you, Representative. Thank you for being here. When and from whom did you first hear about fraud going on in these programs?
So we've had Office of Legislative Auditor reports going back several years, but the Fraud Committee formed last February, and we started getting whistleblower reports immediately. So we had our first hearing on the child care that was exposed in the viral video last February.
Well, speaking of what the governor was doing, and specifically his involvement in all of this, the first that we heard about it was that Minnesota Social Services Union that came out with a damning report of what he allegedly did when they came to him, when whistleblowers came to him, telling him about the fraud. It's not exactly clear when they did this, although it was probably over a period of time. But they wrote on an X post a while back, they said, "We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on." Again, the question is how early? Hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Well, in Minnesota, as you well know, you have a whistleblower law that's very strict. And specifically, it says that there can be you're prohibited from doing any action against an employee for making a good faith report of a violation or suspected violation of federal or state law. It appears that the governor broke that law. Is he being held to account for that?
Yes, it does appear he broke the law. What we have to substantiate is that it was directly from him. We have, documents and reports about his chief of staff and others from his administration. But so we're looking into that. But we also strengthened the whistleblower law because before, whistleblowers in these agencies had to whistleblow directly up through their supervisor. And so that's where all the retaliation was coming from. And they felt really targeted. So this year, I authored a bill that would allow them to also report to legislators and to law enforcement. And that's when the whistleblowers really started coming out of the woodwork, because now they had a safe place where they could whistleblow.
But they make no bones about it. They consider his threats, and I'm using their words, threats and repression of their reports, and the whistleblowers in particular. It looks like he was really being vindictive against them.
Yes, and certainly he was, as well as the commissioners that were running his agencies. And we have multiple whistleblower reports about how they were retaliated against, how they were penalized in their careers, how they were denied vacation or other leave, how they've been surveilled on their computers. There's multiple ways in which they were retaliated against.
And then you have the AG, the Attorney General Keith Ellison, who there's an audio tape of dating back to 2021. It's a few years ago, with individuals who were from the Feeding Our Future scam, and that was an absolute scam. People have are going to jail for that. People have pled guilty to that. So there's no question about whether that was a fraudulent operation. $250 million apparently stolen from child nutrition funds. He was essentially caught on tape telling them, basically don't worry about all of the attention that you're getting. We'll make sure it's okay. And on that same tape, there is talk about, basically we have this campaign going on, and are your people willing to contribute to that campaign? Not only his campaign, but other members of his family. That sounds like a kickback to me, doesn't it to you?
Yes, we had a hearing on this, and he says he returned the contributions, although during the hearing there was one we had found that he was unaware of, which he has subsequently returned. But he said, in that tape, he was definitely defending the people who were fraudulently stealing from taxpayers and saying, well, we'll make sure they don't come after you, things like that, instead of defending his client, which is the state of Minnesota. These people were suing the state of Minnesota, his client, and instead of defending the state and the taxpayers, he was saying, oh, we'll look out for you. And that is terrible.
But with a contribution in there, that is quid pro quo. You lower the heat on me and we'll contribute to your campaign. That seems like what was going on here.
It seems like it, and I know law enforcement has looked into it. Where that stands, I cannot speak to on a legal basis, but it certainly looks terrible. And he should be defending the taxpayers and the vulnerable citizens of Minnesota, not these fraudulent providers.
Now, we know the federal government is investigating all of this. Are you working with the federal government at all in their investigation?
Yes, so I called for a full federal audit back in July, and we're delighted that so many federal resources are now coming to the state of Minnesota to help us with this. And I've worked closely with the Office of U.S. Attorney here in Minnesota, who's been prosecuting these cases. I turn over whistleblower evidence that's credible to their office when I get it. We as legislators don't have access to bank records or health records, so we can only take an investigation so far before we turn it over to law enforcement at the Office of U.S. Attorney and DOJ.
Okay, and what is happening now, the mainstream media has basically been silent about all this for weeks now, although CBS now has a report out pouring cold water on the story that Nick Shirley investigated, that one learning center, which was misspelled, the word learning, and suggesting that they've gone in and seen children there, that in fact there have been many different visits by social service to make sure that everything was okay, and there were minor violations but nothing serious. Do you know the latest on that? They're essentially coming to the assistance of what seemed to be a fraud here, that is the CBS in particular.
Yes, I haven't followed the CBS report, but I know multiple people from local journalists and from our office and from other investigators have gone multiple times, and they've never found children there. They've never seen it open. And so I'm very skeptical. And yesterday I was actually down there and there were children there, but that was at the same time that the head of Children, Youth, and Families, the department, was saying that they had closed it the week before.
Yeah.
So somebody doesn't have their story straight, and they still haven't stopped payment. So I'm going to be looking into that in the fraud committee to find out when, in fact, if they closed it down, they did, and why, if they closed it down, they haven't stopped payments, because it's ridiculous.
One final question about Congressman Ilhan Omar. She was photographed with several of these fraudsters in the past, and of course she's a part of the Somali community that's deeply involved in all of this. Is it just coincidence that during her time in office over the past year or so, her personal wealth has gone up from about $40,000 to over $5 million, some say as much as $30 million? Are you looking into that at all?
So our committee hasn't looked into it, but I've seen the reports, and it's ridiculous. I mean, for someone to gain millions of dollars in wealth in 1 year through her husband's company, that definitely looks like a red flag. And now, especially because they've apparently scrubbed the website of her husband's firm, that is even more suspicious. So I think that the feds are going to be looking into that. She's a federal member of Congress.
Yes.
I'm sure they will take that on. But honestly, this idea that she had nothing to do with it, she's been covering up for Tim Walz and for the fraudsters who are in her district, and she has been her campaign donors for years.
Well, you got a lot of work ahead of you, Representative. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you coming in. Kristin Robbins, appreciate it.